Hello and welcome to ThriveCast. I am so happy that you guys are joining today for another episode. Today is episode 2 of season 2, and I am thrilled that you guys are tuning in from wherever you're coming in. My name is Dominique Gummelt. I am a wellness director at Andrews University, and it is my pleasure and my honor to welcome you to the show today. This is ThriveCast. Wherever you're tuning in from, if you're a student, if you're another viewer, welcome to the show. We are about to bring in today's guest, and you will not want to miss today's guest. I am so thrilled that she took time out of her busy schedule to be with us today. So if you are here to see the show, don't go anywhere. You're going to want to listen to this lady, her story, her wisdom. You will be enriched, you will be motivated, you will be inspired. And so I am super happy that you are joining us today. So why don't you put in the chat while we're getting started, where are you tuning in from? What country? What city? Let me know where you are. We'd like to see where we can welcome you from. And if you are a student at Andrews University and you are joining us today with this program, you have the opportunity to earn co-curricular credit, and the link for that will be shared at the end of the program. So stay tuned, stay with us, be here. I very much look forward to that. So please type into the chat, where are you tuning in from? What country are you from? I see New York, the first one. Everybody type it in. Where are you from? Let me see. I would love to see, and please invite your friends to join us because they're not going to want to miss this guest today. We have this special feature. This is not going to happen all the time. So please don't miss it. Invite your friends. If they're students, they get credit for it. Be here. I see Michigan. I see St. Joe, Michigan. More Michigan. That's great. It's good to see you guys in the house. The rest of you joining us, welcome to ThriveCast. We're about to get started. The AU campus is in the house. Welcome, AU campus. It's great to see you. I'm tuned in today from Hanover, Germany. So I'm actually speaking to you from your future 6 hours in advance. So it's nice to see you there. Andrews Allen from Trinidad. Welcome, welcome. It's great to see you. So everyone, like I just said, I am so thrilled to announce today our very special guest. Today, I am privileged to announce that Dr. Andrea Luxton is with us on the show, and we will discuss some exciting topics today. I have had the pleasure and the great honor to work closely with Dr. Luxton for a number of years, and I personally can only say I have been greatly enriched. I get to learn from her and with her, and I can only tell you guys you're in for a treat today. So with that said, I'm going to bring our guest to the show right now. Hopefully technology will work. And in the meantime, if you're just joining, go ahead and write down where you're joining us from. Welcome to everyone coming in. So I'm going to bring Dr. Luxton onto the show now, and hopefully the technology working. Wonderful. Welcome, Kelly, Bunter, Gideon, Anu, Mita. Nice to see you. Wonderful, wonderful. Great to see you guys here. Yes, I'm waiting for Dr. Luxton to join us. It's connecting.
Hello.
Yes. Welcome, Dr. Luxton. I'm so glad that it's working.
Yeah, me too. My first time doing this, so I'm very excited about it.
We need to take a moment to celebrate that. In the world that we live in, especially during the last year, I really, how shall I say, very proud. I get to share this moment with you, that it's your first Instagram Live. So thank you. Welcome to the show, Dr. Luxton. This is Thrive. Yeah, this is ThriveCast, as you know, and we started this show last fall, and it has been so amazing to see how we have really been interacting with our international community. And I don't know if you just saw, but we have Brazil, we have Africa.
Amazing, all over the world.
Isn't that great? I love seeing that, and it brings us together in a special way. And we've been talking about so many important topics during this time. We talk about how really, truly, we're all made to thrive despite the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And so, but before we dive into any topic, I want to give you the chance to introduce yourself a little further to the audience. Feel free to share whatever you would like to introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. Well, Andrea Luxton, you've heard my name already, and originally from the United Kingdom. As the names of where you came from or are living now came up on the screen, I was excited to see places that I have been to and love going to. So that's something about me. I love traveling, which of course has been a challenge in the last year, but there you go. Because everywhere you go, you learn something different. It adds another perspective, and that's why it's so great when we can get together like this, because we do come together with different backgrounds and perspectives. So love that. I been in education all of my career in different positions, different jobs. Loved everything I have done. Lived for lengthy of time in UK, Canada, and now the United States. People say, which of those do I like best? Well, I like all of them. I love all of them. Just each one has something different about them that is great. So when I'm here, I miss things in Canada and the UK. And when I go to either of those countries, I miss things from here. So, you know, but that's been another one of the things that have enriched my life. What else can I say about myself? I love chocolate. I love ice cream. I love walking along the cliffs. Yes. I love reading. And I like going on cruises, which is something else I haven't been able to do for a long time. So that's a few things about myself.
I love it. I think I actually learned a couple of new things about you as well. I didn't know we both have the same love for chocolate.
Oh yes, absolutely. Especially good chocolate.
Exactly. Which of course, that could be a subject in itself. We could discuss what actually...
That could take at least an hour to discuss.
Same thing. I'm a total chocolate snob. So when I talk about it, it has to be a certain kind. So thank you so much for sharing that about you. And it's so nice that you're taking time out of your very busy schedule to just be here and to connect with us and to connect with our international community. And as you already gave a great start into a little bit about yourself, I have 3 standard questions that I ask every guest on the show just to give people a chance to get to know you a little further. So are you ready for that?
Ready.
Okay, great. So the first question is, what is your favorite fruit and why?
Well, you know, it's got to be strawberry.
Okay.
And I love just about every fruit there is. But growing up in England, summer, the favorite summer dessert was strawberries with cream.
Okay.
The strawberries in England tend to be a little bit smaller maybe than some of the strawberries you buy in store, but very sweet and just delicious. So that stayed with me. So it's got to be strawberries.
Love it. I love it. I bet a lot of people would agree with you on the strawberry part here. And it's funny because no one thus far has said strawberry. I find that so interesting because everyone has their fruit story. So that's good. So the second question is, right now, if you had to describe your current mood using a weather metaphor, what would it be?
It would be a sunny sky with white fluffy clouds.
Oh, I love it. It's great. I love the white fluffy clouds. That's great. Wonderful. And then the third question I have for you is, what would be one thing that you say you're really not good at?
Knowing my left from my right.
Interesting. Okay, elaborate on that just a minute.
So I can be, I can tell you a story. When I would learn to drive, my driving instructor said to me one day, "So Andrea, I know that this time on a Friday afternoon when people see this vehicle, they know that when it indicates right, it's probably going to turn left. And when it indicates left, it's probably going to turn right. But can we see if we can confuse them once in a while?" And he actually wrote an R and an L on the dashboard. So, you know, so in other words, it's not instinctive to me. If you say go right, I have to think which hand I write with. And then that's the right. So I have to go through that process every time. There's nothing instinctively that says left and right to me. And that's always interesting. Even nowadays, I'm driving in a car and then someone will say, take the next left. And I turn right and they say, what, where are we going? So that's something I'm definitely not good at.
It's super interesting. I did not know that, but somebody actually just said, me too. You had a couple of people that apparently have that same experience. So thank you for sharing that. And I just want to take a quick second to welcome everyone who is just joining us. This is veCast, episode 2 of season 2. And we have Dr. Andrea Luxton with us today as our guest. So stay tuned. If you are a student at Andrews University, you will be able to obtain co-curricular extracurricular credit, and we will share the link for that at the end of the program today. So Dr. Luxton, as you know, we've been working diligently the last couple of years at Andrews University to find a new way to express one of our foundational philosophies and our foundational beliefs about well-being, namely that all of us are created to thrive. We're all made to thrive on from a holistic perspective. And so we have been developing this new perspective, this new model to showcase in the time that we live in what that really means and what that might entail. And so we've been taking these pieces week by week to discuss elements of that, to bring more light, to bring inspiration. And one of the key things we've been focusing on here at ThriveCast is to focus on how we can actually continue to thrive despite circumstances. So the focus is on what can we do, not what can't we do. And so that's really the focus here. And so last week, we just had our introduction to this whole idea of thriving. And the first element of this Made to Thrive model is the element called made to matter. In other words, we have defined a big part of our well-being as that there's meaning, there's purpose, we're made to matter. And so when you hear that phrase, just made to matter, what does that mean to you, or how would you express that in your own words?
Well, to me, made to matter is really about individual dignity and individual value. It really recognizes that every person is made in the image of God. And sometimes we just say that just like, well, we're made in the image of God. But I think this really gets down to, what does that mean? It means that we have huge value. It means that we have dignity. And it means that it means we need to respect each other. So, I mean, it just places everybody in a, well, I kind of see it places everyone in a very unique place with a smile on their face, because they have that sense of being somebody because of who they've been created to be.
Mm-hmm. I love how you chose your words there, because as I think about especially this time that we are experiencing, which has been changing, I would say, every person's life, you know, and I have a lot of conversations with people that are finding themselves with very little hope right now, and they're questioning what maybe their purpose is, what maybe their meaning is, and what they're here for. And the way you just expressed that, I liked how you said every single person has value. And I think that's worth, you know, exploring a little bit more. I'll let you elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you was the way you were describing it, with everything that's happening and people are losing their sense of meaning somehow, and wondering if they do matter. And I think it's because we rely so much on external. We are defined by our job. We are defined by other people. We're defined by what we do. And in a sense, what's happened to us now is we're all thrown into a different world where we are alone a lot more, in a way. You talk about it, physically alone, but not alone really, obviously, because God is still with us. But I think it changes, and it makes us ask the question more internally. Do I matter? And the answer, of course, is absolutely yes. And I think in a way, this forces us to look a little bit more inside ourselves and not rely on those external qualifiers or external ways of giving value to ourselves, because that's not where true value is. True value is internal, because of who we are.
That's lovely. I love that. And it's so true. I mean, we have the connection. The connections are here. We have access to technology. Most of us do. And we can connect still, like you said, but we are in a different place right now, with being left alone more physically, and thus also maybe more with our thoughts. What would you say to someone now that would tell you, you know, I really don't know that I do matter? How do I even go about? What questions should I be asking myself to find out what maybe my purpose even is?
I think just start at the very basic question to ask ourselves, which is, what does it mean to be created? What does that actually mean? And I think for people, if they, if they struggle to answer that question for themselves, let's turn it on somebody else. When you look at someone else who's created, what does that mean?
Mm-hmm.
And if it means that for them, it also means it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's where it begins. What does it mean to be created?
Mm-hmm.
And I think once you start unpacking that, it's very difficult to say, well, I don't matter, because if nothing else, I matter to God.
Right.
I mean, if we can't get anything past that,
yeah,
I matter to God.
Yeah.
And who is it more important to matter to anyway than God? I mean, that's not the bottom of the rung, that's the top of the rung to start with.
True. And that's a great way to look at that. Exactly. Instead of saying, well, if nothing else, then there's God, he's top of the rank, right? I mean, it's a great way, a great perspective to maybe turn that around and to look at that. And something that just came to mind when you were talking about, how would I even find any type of value, or how do I go about it? I recently had a great conversation with someone, and they actually gave me a little homework, and it was actually quite hard because I hadn't sat down to do that in a while. And they said to me, sit down and write down 10 things that you really love about yourself, appreciate about yourself. And it's just to start thinking about what is good about me. And it's a tricky subject, because so much of what happens is about ego in our time. But really, are we trying to actually understand our value, which is very different than just being egocentric, right?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because it's really hard to answer that question.
Yeah.
Because we tend to push that away from ourselves, because there's nothing good about me. And then again, we rely on the external to keep us going. Mm-hmm. But to really actually accept the fact that, hey, there might be some good things about us, and to actually put that down, wow, that's actually, I think people can be very challenged to do that. It's a very good exercise.
Yeah, it is. I found myself actually challenged with it, because you first of all go maybe to some of the obvious things in terms of like maybe things people say to you all the time, or some feedback that you might get from someone. But if you actually had to value something within yourself, what is it actually that you value about yourself? And I mean, I'm still thinking about that, where I'm trying to think like, well, have I really gone deeper with that question? I had another conversation with someone, and they said right away, well, I'm very fit, and I'm this and that. And so it's like, you start here, but really true value is about so much more.
It's about inside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's easy for us to say what I like about myself. Well, I like it when I wear this, or I like it when I do this. And again, we shift immediately to the external, because that's so much easier to think about and talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. And so really a good challenge maybe for all the viewers, as we talk about this idea that you've been made to matter and that you are valuable, maybe do that today. Sit down, take a pen, and actually write down 10 things that you value and love about yourself, the way you've been created extraordinarily. And actually see, it's going to be a challenge, but do it. And even if it takes you a few days, that's okay.
Even if you can only get to 5, you've achieved a lot.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be 10, but just start somewhere to really actually get in touch with that. And it's like what you said, oftentimes we do have an easier time to look at someone else. What would you tell somebody else? But when it comes about yourself, you're not really sure how to even start that. And so I think it's a great starting point right there. So when we talk about made to matter, we actually have a number of subcategories of topics that we have discussed as we've been really working on this entire philosophy of made to thrive, and our belief that we've been made to thrive. And one of the topics we want to talk about a little bit more today is this concept of integrity. And integrity is such a good subject. I think we could go into lots of different directions, and we don't have a lot of time. But so integrity, Dr. Luxton. So when you hear integrity, what does that mean? So I want to talk about maybe 2 different areas: personal integrity, but then there's also, maybe since we are talking about an educational institution that we're in, maybe institutional integrity. So feel free to just kind of open the can on that subject.
Yeah, there's so much you could say about this. In some ways, it's easier to talk about the professional than it is about the personal.
Okay.
Because that's more easily, I think, definable. So I'm going to start there. professional integrity to me really is transparency, honesty, an organization, an institution, or what we do in our work environment, as being truthful about what we do, how we do it, following through on promises. It's very much about first of all the way we act, but beyond the way we act, that becomes organization. It can become also the culture. You can have a culture of integrity where that is the whole way the organization is, and everyone who works there is, and that's an ideal. I mean, that I think you want to work with in an institution. So I'm going to switch to the personal, and then we can kind of follow through on some of the questions.
Sounds good.
Because I think that, when you think about integrity on the surface, it is, again, this honesty, truthfulness, and so on. But I think when it comes to it's the connection between who we really are and what people see. I think that is real integrity. It is not just acting with integrity, appearing to do what is right or good or and so on, but it's actually that is part of who we are inside as well. So it's that congruence between ourselves and our actions, if you like. Maybe one way to say it would be in harmony. That if you think about it as an orchestra,
okay,
every part of ourselves is in tune, right? It's in tune with God. We're in tune with ourselves in the way we are seen, perceived, and act. I mean, that to me is a way I would describe real integrity. I don't want to kind of bring everything and conclude the whole conversation with it, but that's why it's so important to, when you talk about made to thrive. It's not just made to, it's because if there is congruence between what we do, what we say, and who we are, then we thrive as a person. Right? We're not at war with ourselves. If you don't have integrity, if you don't have that congruence, that's when you are at war with yourself. People may not even realize it, but that puts huge stress on us. If we're trying to speak and live and be in there, they're all different. We act under huge stress.
I'm fascinated. I'm listening intently to all what you're saying, and just even starting to go into that subject area, I just started realizing too, as we think about the way the world is, it's so easy to live and act in different ways and to present yourself in different ways, and at the end of the day, do we also lose really our integrity because we don't even, like you said, because we're not even in tune with ourselves, and we adjust to these different circumstances around. I heard a great speech one time where someone was talking about the studies that we have now about also younger generations and how we learn from very early on that we need to adapt to these different situations and be a certain person in a certain circumstance because of the social conditioning or whatever might be going on there. And it just reminded me of what you were saying, and it hasn't been so clear, but you say how exhausting and stressful it is to be at war with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. You think about it, and it's so easy for us to fall into acting in a different way, right? Because we may be trying to position ourselves in a certain way, or because we want someone to feel good about us, or especially if we haven't got that sense of I matter, if we are relying on the external, so easy to fall into that.
Yes.
And so we just we pose, for lack of a better word. We take a position in order to create some external environment that we think is going to be better for us, or keep us safe. But in doing so, we're actually not being honest with ourselves, or even everybody else. And I think it's so easy to do, but really, really challenging for us. I mean, put it another way. My background's English. Okay, so let's look at it from the point of view of the way language works, and all the kind of comments about fake news and all of this type of stuff that's out there. And you read the newspapers, or you listen to something online, and there's a slant. Okay, people will slant information to lead you to a conclusion.
Yeah.
Now, when they're doing that, the best news in my mind is very careful about doing that. They don't miss things out, right? Because when you miss things out, you're actually only telling part of the truth.
Yeah.
Even though you may know that it's not that simple.
Yeah.
Right. And so immediately, to me, there's a break of integrity there. And I think we are so used to living that way. So this person is twisting it this way, so I better twist it that way a little bit, so that we somewhere get back into the middle. I don't know. I'm not sure that is how we should be acting. Because we really, basically it becomes manipulative. And I think that once you start being manipulative, it's counter to truth, or you're doing it in order to gain something for yourself. And it's more important to gain something for yourself than to be honest about what's going on or honest about the situation. So it's just something that's so much part of the way living happens all the time. It's very hard to really pull back from that and really consciously say to myself, am I acting with integrity here?
Yeah. And as I'm listening to you, and I hope all of our viewers are doing the same thing. I mean, as you are really, there were so many good nuggets, and I hope our wonderful producer, Denard, just captured some of the things you said, because they're so essential to this concept of really finding meaning and purpose, and really embracing that you're made to matter. I had so many situations that just went through my head as you were, giving examples, precisely because of what you're saying, because the way our system, the way our world functions is to constantly, it's about, what do I need to do to get there, to get a certain outcome, but does that really agree with my own values, or do I just have to function within the system because that's how we just negotiate, and this is how we do, and this is how we adapt, and have I even ever asked myself that question? I think that is a key as well, to say, do I even really know? And that goes back to another point you said that I just want to bring out, maybe as an exercise and something that we could all do, is, do I actually know what my values are? Yep. And I think that's a worthwhile question to explore, because if you don't actually know what they are,
then you can't be congruent between your values and your actions.
Precisely. And I think, everybody has a certain upbringing, a certain background. So clearly we have adopted certain values based on our upbringing, or maybe based on our environment or our belief system. But at the end of the day, are you really clear on what your values are? Are you really clear of what is non-negotiable for you? And then, like you said, the next question would be, okay, once I know that, what does that look like in reality? Am I actually, like you said, living this way? I recently had another excellent conversation with a very well-known speaker, and he posed the question. He said, so if somebody were to follow you around 24/7 with a camera, how would you feel like that you are really living out what you say you believe in your value system? Is a really good question.
It's a very good question, and that's a very good way of doing a check on ourselves.
Yeah.
Because I think we fall into these blurry areas. I'm gonna call it blurry areas.
Yep.
Very, very easily. And to stop at the end of the day, at the end of the week, and just ask that question, I think is a really, really good way of doing a double check. And then when we haven't, and we won't all the time. I just be honest, we won't all the time. Then I think to ask ourselves, well, why? What stopped us doing that? What stopped us acting according to our values at that point in time? Or what stopped us, why did we fudge it a little bit and hedge the truth a little bit?
Right. And and as we know, of course, from studies as well, that if you first go into that direction, you do it the first time, you might have a stronger emotional reaction to it. But if you repeat it, you will probably not feel as strongly about it. So your self-check has to be much more
Yes.
cognitive than on an emotional level, because you might not feel that strongly about it anymore.
Yes.
So no, I think these are great thoughts. And another thought I want to pick up that you said, and I think it's a really important thing, is, the subject of being honest with yourself. I think that's a really interesting subject. How can I be honest with myself? Talk about that a little bit more.
It's kind of scary, to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
It's actually easier to be honest with someone else, I think, in some ways, than to be honest with yourself.
Okay.
Because and I think that the first thing to do is ask ourselves, what is the barriers to being honest with ourselves? And it's fear. It's going back to that sense of value. I've got to convince myself I'm like this. Because if I'm not, then who am I? I don't like myself.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think we can avoid the truth about ourselves because of that. I think it's that I want to talk about the harmony thing again.
Yeah.
And I don't know how different people do it. I'm just talking for myself. But for me to find those moments where I feel I'm out of harmony, I just need to do the still small voice bit. I need to go away quietly, and I need to just quieten myself.
Yeah.
And invite God to help me really work through that piece and find the harmony again. Because and I think it's something that eventually, that if we're really open to it, and if we are listening to ourselves sensitively, we begin to sense when we're out of harmony. We begin to sense when something is not connecting. And I think if we can get to the point when we listen to ourselves enough, maybe we sense it through our anxiety, maybe we sense it through lack of sleep, however we sense it, that sense of something is not right here.
Yeah.
To be able to stop and pause and say, okay, I need to get to the heart of this. I need to find the harmony again. Maybe sometimes we know what it is. And we realize that we've acted in a way that is out of our value system, out of our character, and it's just clashing. Right? That lack of harmony is just clashing. And I think we need to say, okay, why did I do that? What's going on here? And explore that, and be able to honestly do that. It's not an easy thing. And I think in today's generation, when so much is flashing by us all the time, we are so busy, we keep our minds so occupied with many things, and we eject so much out of our mind because we just don't have time or energy for it.
Yeah.
To not allow ourselves to eject that is, I think, a conscious effort.
Yeah, that is so good. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I just think it's so critical, though, that we don't allow ourselves to reject it, because it really is about our own personal health and well-being, that harmony. And I think at all costs we need to be willing to face it, basically.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. And I think, again, adding to the list of things to do for all of us based on what you're saying, I love that too, this whole analogy with being in harmony with yourself. And like you're saying, the only way you can really start tuning in and listening to yourself is if you actually remove yourself from all the constant noise and input that's happening, so that because at the end of the day, we're always reacting to all these situations and circumstances. And if you're not sure maybe what your value system is, if you're not sure, are you actually honest with yourself, you need to have some time to really get in tune with that, to see where you stand. And the only way you can do that is if you distance yourself from the constant input, so it's not just washed over. And I know what you're saying. I think a lot of people can resonate. I mean, our days are intense, whether you're a student, whether you are an employee, a faculty, a staff at university. I mean, our days are full, and they're packed with info input. And so you have all this input, but but at the end of the day, you're just reacting to all that input, and there's not enough mind space. And so I think it's vital for all of us maybe to be challenged to say, if we really want to thrive, we need to find times where we really go, like you said so nicely, go into this, you know, the still world, like actually be quiet, go be still, listen, reflect. I think that's something that we all need to be doing a lot more of. And then, like you say, to feel and hear, you'll probably, if you have that quiet, figure out, am I really in harmony with my values and the way I live?
Right. And I think one of our biggest challenges is we have, as you said, we have so much and they're all important. Yeah. And so we list the things we have to do. We have to do this, we have to do this and this and this and this and this. And even worship can get pushed in there. And we must have our worship and we must do this. Right. And then so there's time to just stop, reflect, listen, get in tune with ourselves. Just gets pushed out because it's not in the must-do list. It's in the maybe if I have time list. And we never do have time because there's so much in the must-do list. And I think we have to reverse that and push it right at the top of our priority list. So I learned, one of the things I learned reasonably early on in my career, because there's so much to do person, and including reaching out to other people. And so even as a young teacher, my days were just packed, absolutely packed from morning till night. And I realized that I was burning out with that. And I think it was that I just was not giving myself time. And so eventually I took what to me was a dramatic step of actually putting an appointment in my calendar for myself. And actually, and because if it was there in black and white, I wasn't going to remove it. And I've done that ever since then, because if you don't do that, it just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. But if you don't give yourself that time, everything else suffers. At the end of the day, you are not effective in anything else. You know, say once you get out of that harmony, the stress levels rise, and it impacts everything else you do.
It's brilliantly said. Exactly. This practice that everyone should include, you know, and like you say, you've got to put it in your calendar if you want it to happen. I mean, in my world, of course, working with people day in and out to help with behavior change, that's the key thing. If you're not going to plan for it, if you're not intentional, if you're not going to schedule it, it's not going to happen. And so that's the truth with working out. That's the truth with healthy eating. That's the truth with taking quiet time. And like you said, and this piece that is so vital. And I think a lot of us really, I think it's scary. It's scary to really look deep, like you said, to be honest with yourself. It's a scary thing. You said that earlier. It's probably easier to be honest with somebody else than it is to be honest with yourself. And so we avoid it too. We avoid it. And that's why oftentimes we don't schedule that time.
And on all the wellness things as well. I mean, with some of the others, you can have a checklist. Right. I've exercised 30 minutes today. I've done my cardio today. I've done my stretches today. I've drunk my water today. I've had my vegetables today. Tick, 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 tick. Well, this isn't a tick box in the same way, right?
It's not,
because it's not necessarily a definable time. I mean, it's something that's a little bit more intangible, and so it's the one that I think is probably of all of them easiest for us to not feel bad about if we haven't done it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's well put. And I have to keep an eye on the time, because I love getting into these conversations. I could go like for a couple hours because it is so important, and it's topics that we really don't talk about that much, because it's also, you know, even for me, listening to what you were saying, I was having some process. I'm like, oh, yep, I need to go back and need to get in check with that subject and that subject. And that's good. But it's something that, you know, requires also a lot of energy and effort, and potentially also the necessity to change. And that is what we resist, I think, more than anything, on many levels. And so, but one question I have for you as we kind of wrap up our conversation. So this idea of made to thrive, and maybe in context with made to matter, I leave that up to you. But if you had to share with our viewers today 5 things that you think are essential to thrive in life, what would they be?
And I may kind of connect this to some things I've said, but number one has got to be stay in harmony with God. I think that's number one. Number two is, I think, reach out to other people. We are made to be a community, and reach out to people and let them stretch your horizons. I'd say that's number two. Number three, just the basic, look out for yourself, look after yourself, and that is all the keeping healthy, doing the right things to keep healthy.
Okay.
Number four has got to be what I just talked about, is be honest about yourself and to yourself in the way you respond to other people. And what can I do for number five? Number five, I gave the image of the sky, the bright sky with the clouds. Be positive. Look for the positive. Look for the positive.
Excellent. I love it. I'm actually taking notes because I always love hearing everybody's points to thrive. They're so helpful, and your perspective on it with your experiences. So I love that. And I hope everyone else captured that too. Some people were typing some of the notes in there. Thank you all for that. And I want to very briefly, just so that everyone can hear it one time, so that everyone can try to really embrace this concept of being made to matter. Every single one of you watching has been created to matter. There's no question about it. Dr. Luxton talked about this earlier, that, the top of the chain, the God of the universe made you to matter, and he believes that you matter. And so that's a beautiful thought to embrace if you haven't really envisioned that recently. But we actually have a statement that we have created for this made to matter statement, and it says this: imagine creating a world where everyday events are woven into a much greater story, and life is guided by the wisdom of its designer. That is the power of meaning. And so I want to encourage you, with everything we talked about today as you're viewing, that we truly are a masterpiece. Every single one of you has been created to be that. And we have the choice, and we have our own choice to decide how we want to create and live our life with all these subjects we just discussed today. And we have the ability to find that meaning. And so I want to encourage each one to go into yourselves with these different exercises we talked about today. We talked about write down things you love about yourself, actually reflect your own value. I think that's really important. And then reflect on, what are your values in general? Have you thought about that? If you haven't, or maybe you haven't for a while, maybe sit down and say, what's really essential? What can I not compromise in my life? What is my belief system? And then if you're not clear, I encourage you to search for that and to go after that, and not just say, well, I don't really know, and move forward, because then you can't be honest with yourself if you don't know what's going on. So thank you so much for all your helpful input. Luckily we have technology, so this entire conversation is captured, and so it will be posted on IGTV as well as on our YouTube playlist for ThriveCast. So please feel free, anyone who watched, if you feel this conversation is helpful for someone you know, to share the link and let them participate. Students at Andrews University can get co-curricular credit even in retrospect when they watch this conversation at a later time. So feel free to share that. And Dr. Luxton, I want to already thank you again for all your wisdom that you shared with us today. I appreciate that very much. And also about yourself. So we got to know you a little better, which was great. And I have the custom of always giving the guest of the show the last word of today. So go ahead.
Well, my last word would be an invitation for something else that you can all do. And that is it. In your next quiet moment, read Psalm 139, because I don't think there's any psalm that is more explicit about how much we matter, what it means to be created, and how that impacts us. It's a beautiful psalm. Lord, you have searched me and you know me. And it's about the total knowledge that God has about us, that gives us value, that means how shows how much we matter. And I think it is in that context that maybe we learn to understand a little bit more about ourselves and our values. So It's been just great to talk with you all today, and thank you, Dominique. Great conversation,
Thank
and
you.
I look forward to listening to what other people have to say on this topic too. So this semester. So thank you.
Thank you so very much. And thank you for all the viewers from around the world. We just extend our greetings from Andrews University to you. Connect with us anywhere you like and you can. And ThriveCast is on air every Tuesday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. And I'm really looking forward to next week as well. We have special guests lined up for you, incredible people that hopefully will inspire you to also embrace this fact that you have been made to thrive. So sending you greetings and love, and thank you, Dr. Luxton, and wishing everyone a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.